How I actually got to Phillips.
Start by saying your name.
Bill Kaslika, Duquesne, Pennsylvania. High school, not one college coach was interested in me. The English teacher at my school took me up to his little NAI school to talk to the coach there in western Pennsylvania to see if I could just walk on and pay my own way. After visiting with the coach, coming home, never heard from him. The name of that school is nationally known, Slippery Rock College. 3 years later, I'm at the University of Tulsa, playing Phillips. At halftime, I had 22 points against them, and we upset them. The next year, my last ball game at Wichita State, we're coming back on the bus. The coach says, go up to Bartlesville, go to the Adams building and have lunch with a guy named Bud Browning, which I wouldn't know, just like Lou. I go up there, have lunch with him, he takes me down to the locker room. There's my warm-up with my name on it. He says, we're playing the United States All-Star, Army All-Stars. I played 2 or 3 minutes, come home. He says, next week, after class, go out to the airport. I get on a plane, fly to St. Louis. We play Akron Goodyear. I get in a couple of minutes, watch the St. Louis Hawks there in the auditorium, fly back, and I'm at school the next day. And that was my introduction to Phillips. And I'm real proud to be a Phillips 66.
That's a hard act to follow right there. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and I was offered several scholarships, and the biggest one, I guess, was the University of Kentucky, and I chose Western Kentucky. And why I chose Western Kentucky, I have a twin brother, and I'm from a family of 9 children, and out of those 9, we were the babies. My twin brother and I, we were the babies. So I chose Western because we were home every weekend to stay at home on the weekends. I mean, we were homebodies. And when we left on Sunday night, my mama would cry. If I had picked University of Kentucky, which is the elite school, I would have quit the first month because I was so attached to my family, my mom and dad, being home every weekend. So that's why I went to Western. And after playing at Western, Phillips, I had a great friend here, Bobby Rasco. He was my hero there at Western, and I played along beside him, and he came to play with the Phillips 66 Allers, and then after I graduated, they asked me to come out and try out, and so they kept me. You know, I'm looking this crowd over, and I see I've done a little research on people with bald heads. And I see, you know, if your hair is receding from the front end, that means you're a big thinker and you're usually very smart. Now, if you start back here, that means you're a lover. Now, if you start up here and back here and it meets in the middle, they think they're lovers. So it's good to be with you all today, and we're looking forward to this weekend, spending time with old buddies here. I'm going to pass this along to the guy that beat me one-on-one. I mean, beat me in a horse game, Coach Thompson.
My name is Gary Thompson, and I played at Iowa State University. And one of the best decisions I ever made was to come to Phillips Petroleum Company. And I gave up $50 a month. The other teams in the league were all offering me $50 a month to play. And Phillips was offering me $50 less, and I knew where to go. My coaches that I had at Iowa State said Phillips is the Cadillac of AAU basketball. But I kept talking to Bud Browning, and I said, God, they're offering me $50 a month. Now, that's 1957, And I'm not very smart, but $50 a month added up to about $600 a year, and that seemed like a fortune for a guy that was married in college. But I made the right decision, and I came to Phillips. And as of last July, this July, I will have been with Phillips 60 years. I spent 11 and a half years as a direct employee. Then, with the help of a lot of you who remember, if you're old-time Phillips people, Pete Morrison, a great friend. I just talked with Francis yesterday. He enabled me to get back to Ames, Iowa, and buy a Phillips jobbership. And so we've been back there since '68. And the other thing with Phillips was it was hard on our wives. Like Stephanie said, we were on the road in a public relations tool for the company. And we, one time, when I was a player, we represented the State Department. We were gone 7 weeks overseas. 7 continual weeks we were gone. And my wife, we had a couple little kids at that time, but we traveled all over from Athens to Beirut to Egypt to the Holy Land to Rome. Each place stayed like 5 to 7 days. So it was a tremendous opportunity, and I got to tell you one other thing that it did for me. I was on the USA team. Jerry Shipp, who's not here, was on that team. Mike Moran, who was not a Phillips 66er at that time, later became. We're on the USA team that went to Russia, one of the first teams that got to play over in Russia. While there, that was 1961, and they had Yuri Gagarin was the first cosmonaut to go into space, and they introduced us to him when we played in Moscow. While we were there, Alan Shepard made the flight, suborbital flight. And the guy, one of the people, the Russians, came up to me while we were there playing and showed me a newspaper clipping about it. And it said that the Russians had put a man in space, and the United States was only a suborbital flight. That was kind of interesting. The other part of that is, 25 years later, I met Alan Shepard and had a picture taken with him. So I can say I met the first 2 guys that were in space.
Kentucky. And I had a pretty good career there at University of Kentucky, and a former 66, 2 former 66ers players saw me play at University of Kentucky, Bill Evans and Bobby Plump, and they recommended to Coach Browning that he signed me to play for Phillips. And again, Gary, I made the right decision to play at Phillips for the Phillips 66ers. Gave me an opportunity to have a job when I got through playing. You know, I was drafted by a couple of NBA teams, and at that time I still got my contract from those teams, $7,000. You know, and that didn't guarantee you get to play. You know, it didn't guarantee anything. But I could play for Phillips. And I love to play basketball, and still have a job when I got through playing. So, what a great company to play for. What a great group of people to play for and play with. And it's a privilege for me to be a part of Phillips Petroleum Company.
Bobby Rasco from Bowling Green, Kentucky. 19 in 60. 19, well, went there in 1958, graduated in 1962. And when I graduated, I got drafted number 16. Okay, I'll get it up here. I'll get it right in a minute. I got drafted number 19 by the New York Knicks.
Just take it on up there.
And New York, a country boy like me, New York City, man, I can tell you right now, we had played Phillips that year, and of course Bud Browning was coach then, and he had got to see me play in that game. By the way, Phillips won that game. But anyway, I decided right away that a country boy like me wasn't going to go play pro ball in New York City. And I was going to stay back down in Kentucky. But, and I'm glad I did. I can think of one thing that I experienced when I was here with Phillips in 1966, whenever Gary was coaching. We went to, this was an all-star group, I believe, and we went to Santiago, Chile, with a team composed of several Phillips 66 players and some other AAU players. We played this game, teams from all over the world were there. I mean, Russia and all of them. And we played, it's a tournament. And we played this tournament in an outdoor soccer stadium that holds 50 or 60,000 people. They just brought in the floor and put the floor down and played one in there. And one of the greatest things that, and I didn't realize it so much at the time, happened to me. And I got to represent the United States team as captain of the team, and also we had ceremonies just like they do in the Olympics. I got to carry the flag for the United States when we came in. I'm certainly appreciative of that, and being able to represent Phillips 66 during that occasion, and had a lot of other good things happen to me as a result of that. So I'll never forget that, and I'm thankful for that. I'll pass it on to the next guy.
I'm Gene Johnson from Seminole, Oklahoma. I had the opportunity to play for Mr. Iva. I had also the opportunity to play for Gary Thompson and the Phillips 66ers. I have a lot of treasured memories. And I had 6 pages here I was going to share, but I don't think I will. I picked out 3 of them. We're on the road somewhere. I can't remember where we're playing. And Kuzlaika and Skorzinski, the Polish guys, kind of hung out together a little bit. That was okay, but Lou, and we always had, we had long warm-up pants and tops and everything, and Lou's always kind of off the wall. Whatever you think is the way to do it, that's not the way to do it. But anyway, so he's talking to Kuz, and I'm kind of listening. He says, Kuz, you think we're going to get in this game tonight? And I guess we're playing a team that maybe those guys didn't match up against or something. Kuz said, no, there's no way we'll get this game. He said, okay, just for fun, let's just put our jock strap on and then our pants. Don't put our basketball pants on. But he couldn't talk Kuz into it. True story. True story. Second story. There was a group of us, Lou, Congdon, Gene West. Is Gene here?
No, he had to cancel.
Oh, they had to cancel. And myself. We were all married guys, and a big deal for us on the road. Once we got out of practice or after the game, we wanted to find out where was the biggest and the best hot fudge sundae. And I swung down by Brahms, and it's buy one, get one free. I was hoping Gene was going to be here. We would go do that. But anyway, we're in Pocatello, Idaho, and I think that's Idaho State or Idaho University. I don't know what it was, but anyway, us guys that had we'd already played the ball game. We go back to our room. We're eating our hot fudge sundae. We got John Wayne on the TV, and all of a sudden we hear a scurry. Somebody's knocking on our door, and here comes the guys that like to go out on the town a little bit after the ball game. And Kuz will have to straighten me out on this story, but anyway. What happened, they go in this honky-tonk and pretty girls and music and maybe a beer or two. And Kuz tells it that there's a, well, that's a pretty girl. I think I'll ask her to dance. Well, this guy beats him to it, the local guy from Idaho. So Kuz goes back to the bar and is looking. Then another guy, third guy comes up. I don't want you dancing with her, and just punches him out. Then, one of our guys is sitting at the bar,
Ray Bob Carey.
He's not here to defend himself.
He's coming later.
He's sitting at the bar. And here's another guy, Idaho boy. And another Idaho boy walks over here with a pistol. True story. True story. I don't know if they ever told Thompson about it. But they thought Ray Bob might have to go back up there and testify. I don't think he ever did. And then my last.
Gene, tell him, he shot the guy. You didn't tell him, he actually shot the guy.
I thought I did.
No.
Ray Bob is good.
Then my final memory as a 66er, my good friend Dee Carrier and Big Kendall Ryan. I wish Kendall was here. He's got a few health problems. He was like a big spider on the boards. I mean, he was 6'11", but he must have had arms of a 7'3" guy. But he was a good guy. But anyway, the last night, my first wife and I were in town. They invited us out for a steak dinner. I thought, well, that was really nice, just to say goodbye to us and everything. And then when it came time to pay, Dee didn't have his wallet. He said, big boy, to Kendall, big boy, you get it, I'll settle up with you later. So 5 years later, we're in a reunion. I said, Kendall, that dinner we had, you and Dee settled up? He just smiled. But that's not a true story. Dee bought the whole check. That's the story. I'm still pretty
1960, it came with Phillips in June of 60. And I was going to tell some stories too about signing up and all that, but I got thinking with Gary, in the fall of 61, the Phillips 66ers were invited by the State Department, I think along with Goodyear team, to make a trip to the Middle East. I've always remembered quite a bit about that trip. As I get older, some of it fades. I was going to tell one deal. We were in Beirut, which in those years was the Paris of the Middle East. And we were going to make a trip to Damascus, Syria. No war in those years. But they had a revolution just before we got there. But anyway, we went up one day from Beirut in cars. I can't remember if we went in taxis or it was the State Department or the embassy provided the cars, but local drivers. And we did our clinic, and we wore our nice little warm-ups just like she's got on. They were brand new that year. And that's a little bit later. But anyway, we're coming back, and there's, again, 3 or 4 of us in this one car with our PR man, which I won't name. And he was inebriated, I guess that's the word. I don't know where you get it from in those countries, but he had it. And we're driving, there's a mountain range between Beirut and Damascus. It's not real far by distance. And the road is one of these and up and down. And we're going along, and all of a sudden, a car passes us. And our driver all of a sudden decides, I'm embarrassed. That's a challenge or something. And he's got to pass him. Well, these are just 2-lane roads, not marked, and drop-offs. And there we go. And he starts to pass the same guy. And we're sitting back there, and George has got a happy land for a while. And all of a sudden, we're rounding a curve, and we're passing the guy on the right, and there's a car coming right at us, and I thought we're dead. And I closed my eyes, and George saw it, and he was a fighter pilot on the First and Second World War. And all of a sudden, I closed my eyes and waited, and nothing happened. The next thing you know, we're driving along like crazy. George has still got his eyes closed, and he turned white. We never did know how we got through that. I don't know if the other car went off the side. Well, we crashed and I'm just living a life in heaven. I don't know. One other thing I always remembered, we were in Jerusalem when the city was divided between the Arabs and the Jewish people. We were in the Jewish section. And we made a day trip to Amman, Jordan to go see the king, like whoever it was, and had coffee with them. And when we did, we went by the Dead Sea, and there was a big Palestinian camp there. And as we drove by, they were fixing a court to play on. You could see it quite well. And they were pulling these barrels that got water in them, like you see in the highway now with a big tractor pulling the big barrels of water to put the weight on them. And they were pulling them and laying it down. They put gravel down on the court, and were, I guess, tar or gravel, and they were putting it down. So we went to the King's Palace, came back, we were in our warm-ups, because it was good advertising, I guess. And that's where we were going to put our clinic on. And we put a scrimmage game on. We did that once or twice or 3 times every day. We were there for about 11 weeks. And those uniforms never got cleaned. Because Bud, they were brand new. And Bud, our coach in those years, thought that they would be lost, they would be ruined, and he was afraid to let the people over there take care of them. You're getting suspicious already. But anyway, we went out and played a scrimmage game. And Jerry Shipp, who's not here, used to shoot a jump shot, and he'd lift his leg up, he'd fade up, and I always fouled him. And we were knocking him down and fouling him, and the referee would blow the whistle, he'd go to the foul line, and when he would shoot a foul, he would put his feet out, dribble, hit, 4 or 5 times, and then he'd shoot. And he was a good shooter. But after a while, his forehead started bleeding. Well, in those years, the ball now is rubber, isn't it? Yeah. In those years, it was leather. So when he's bouncing the ball, and when we were bouncing balls, the gravel was coming up and sticking on the ball. And he got it on his hand, he's rubbing his forehead like crazy. The other thing I always remember, when it was time to come home, we had traveling bags for the uniforms. I think we had 2 sets of uniforms and our warm-ups. None of them were clean, that I recall. Gary may change that, I can't remember. But you know, in those years when you came back, you had a form you had to fill out and load everything you bought, and how much, and if it exceeded, I think it was $400 in those years. It might have been 4,000, if I can remember. But if you exceeded it, you had to pay a tax or something. So what was happening, a lot of the guys had spent quite a bit of money and were stuffing them in those bags. So when we got back to the airport in the United States, we're all in line to get checked out. There was a guy there inspecting all the bags. There were no dogs or anything, but there was these guys. So the first player came up with the bag and put it down. The guy zipped up and almost fell over. He looked at the rest of us, he zipped it up and waved his all for us. That's what I remember the most. But I was going to say something about recruiting, but I don't want to do that either. Except that when my wife came with me and we landed in Tulsa, we had originally I was going to drive, had bad weather, didn't end up driving. I'm cutting that short too. We had 2 long chests, and I gave them to my father-in-law to send to Bartlesville, care of blood drowning, the Adams building. So we flew in the airplane, of course. I don't think I could fly in those years. But anyway, we flew, we got to Tulsa, we got in the limousine that Tulsa used to provide between the airport and Bartlesville. And the first place we come to is a 1-lane bridge. He didn't have any 1-lane bridges in New Jersey, or Maryland, or Washington, D.C., and there was a cow in the middle of it. And we waited and waited, until finally they got the cow in. We get to the hotel here in town, and I can't find the bed. It's in the wall. We didn't have any of those in New Jersey either. And then Barbara looked out the window and she said, "Oh, there's the end of the world out there." So we've been here for 40 years and we're glad to be here.
No, and I played with Gary, and I played with Larry Purcell and with Al, so.
And me.
And Bosco.
What's the name of the school?
The name of the school I graduated from was Wabash College. And,
Is that in Alaska?
it's in Indiana. But, during the time that I was playing at Wabash, I had a visit to our team right at the end of the year with from Bobby Plump and his coach in college, Tony Hinkle. And after the game, Plump, as many of you would know him better from the Hoosiers than from the 66ers. But he offered me an opportunity to fly to Bartlesville for what at that time he said an interview. So I took him up on it because I'd never been on an airplane before, and was looking forward to the ride. And I came out here to the 66ers, and what I thought was an interview turned out to be a tryout. And that's how I got involved with a lot of these guys. Now, you've heard a lot of stories already about our trip to the Middle East, State Department sponsored trip, and I think all of us have different memories about that trip. I know I did, and our first stop was in Athens, Greece, and the first game we were to play there was with the Greek national team, and we had just started the game, and we had a play that was called the Kangaroo Cramp, and it was a play in which I took the ball and passed it toward the backboard, toward the right side of the backboard, and we had a guy by the name of Don Kogis could jump out of the gym, and he would take that pass and then dunk the ball with two hands. And the first time we tried that in Greece, it shattered the blackboard. We obviously had to extend our stay another day or two there until we could find another backboard to put up for us to play. But we're getting a little short of time, and I know Jim Bonsack will cut us off if we go too far, so I'm going to stop at this point and pass it on to Wayne Roundtree.
Yeah, I'm kind of short. I'm not used to speaking a whole lot, but
Closer.
I'm not used to speaking quite a bit. But, I remember Phillips basketball team since 43, I guess. And I've been around them all the time. And so one day, I'll make it short. One day I was working and I did cab renting, and he called me over and he said, "Hey Wayne, you want to go as the manager for the Phillips team?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know anything about that." And he said, "Well, with Phillips, you don't need to know anything about training. He said, if it gets sick, you take him to the doctor." So that's what I did for most of 6 years when I was with him, from 1964 to 1968. And I could go on with a lot of other things that wouldn't be interesting. Well, it'd be interesting, but it'd take a while to get through them. That was, let's see, I'm 83 at this point, so it takes a while to get around it.
I would just add about Wayne Roundtree. He was our trainer and did whatever Coach Thompson asked him to, and he never complained. But he wouldn't take any lip off of anybody.
Well, we're 11 o'clock. I just wanted to say I have some things up here. I don't know if you're interested. Some pictures. There's a wonderful book, and I think Daryl has a book too, but there's a wonderful book, Gary didn't know I was going to do this, about Gary Thompson. And it's just fascinating, his life story, but he tells so much about the 66ers, and it just meant a lot to me. But I have it. If anyone ever wants to borrow it, you're welcome to read it. And I also wanted to say Phillips has always been great.
Don't borrow it.
Oh, yes, yeah. Gary still has them for
Didn't
sale.
make any money.
And I just want to say Phillips has just been great to us. They sponsored.
How and why did the industrial league end and when did that happen?
Okay, the question is, did it? I think some companies still have teams right now, don't they? There is still an industrial league, is that correct?
No, not to the extent that was this was the Cadillac of the time.
Oh, I know that, yeah.
Basketball. And I was involved, coached I never coached. And Bud Browning, I was very close with Bud. In fact, one of our last child they were our godfather, named for our child. And all three of our kids, interesting thing, get off the subject, but my wife would go back to Iowa. My wife would get pregnant in Iowa, and our kids were born in Oklahoma at Jane Phillips Hospital. 3 kids, and they were all born at Jane Phillips Hospital. But in
That's where I was born.
Right, Jane Phillips.
In 57 years, I've only made it 2 blocks.
Good for you. But what happened, to tell you the true story, at that time, we were having some problems. We never had a black player. And I was told as a coach to finally look at trying to secure a basketball player, a black basketball player. And the other thing, there was 2 things happening. The NCAA, the NC, what do I want to say? I get but we were trying to find a player. And if we could find a player that could play, we didn't want one to sit on the bench. He was getting too much money to go pros. And then about the time the ABA league came, I think in my 3rd year, and these guys, they needed players, and they were paying a lot more money than Phillips could play as an amateur team. And so a lot of guys left. And during my time being recruited, I remember Phillips telling me that 80% of the players that ever came to work for Phillips as a player were still with the company. That was back in the 50s and 60s. And so that combination of things, that we weren't retaining players with the company and also trying to overcome the black situation, actually ended up as the demise of the tournament. And the other thing was that some of the other teams were folding up. Goodyear folded their team, Peoria Caterpillars. They were on union basis with the kids working, and they would get laid off. And so a number of things happened, but that was the bulk of it.
What year was that?
Well, it had been 68 was our last year that we had a team, 67, 68.
I understand Al, when he left Maryland, he was #1 draft choice, and they told you could make hundreds of dollars in the NBA?
Yeah. I was the 7th person drafted, and I had half a dozen calls from different teams, all except Philadelphia Warriors in those years. And I got drafted by them. And one of the conversations I had with them was the second round that I had with them. First I met in their office, and they offered me $6,000, and I told them no. That's when they had Wilt Chamberlain. And then I met a second time, maybe 3 weeks later, in Glassboro, New Jersey, on a Sunday afternoon in a bowling alley, sitting on the concrete, just me and the owner of the team, negotiating. And at that time, I never heard of Phillips 66. And I told him no. He offered me $6,000. I wanted $15,000. I felt well with myself. And he said, well, I'll give you $6,000 and you name your own bonus. So it came out of $6,000. So I said no. So I didn't know what to do. But my college coach was a graduate of some school out here named Oklahoma
A&M.
A&M. Never heard of it. He was an All-American in 39 and 40 and played for Iowa. And so anyway, he called Bud Browning, and Bud recruited me. And I came out here in June of, I guess it was before June, maybe May of 1960, and thought this is where I wanted to go. And I've been happy ever since. Best decision ever made.
Now, Al, if you were the number 7 pick now, how much would that make the NBA?
Shut up. None of your business.
But if you were that rich, you'd still come to the forum every Friday, wouldn't you?
I refuse to answer that on grounds.
Hey, Daryl, I want you to know that Al has beaten the Goody both life before at Papa Shop. You got the gold now. You have a gold.
I am the champ 2 years running. I've held our end of the bargain.
All right.
Yeah. But I was only 60% shooter in college.
All right. Anything else for these gentlemen? Thank you so much.
First year fund game. And it's the Olympic year, 62. No, 60. And they were invited, usually just seniors, but they invited everybody. I mean, everybody was good. They had like 12 players from the West, 12 players from the East, and I got invited. So when the paper came out, they listed all the players in the write-up about it. And it would say Oscar Robinson, remember him, and everything, and they had Barney Jackson and him, and Stiff from State Bonaventure. And then the last one was me, and when Al Bungetler said, "Who's he?" yeah. And I ended up playing for a guy named Rossini, the NYU coach. And I started. And I guarded Oscar Robinson because my coach called me and said, play him against Oscar. And he did. And I got a defense against him. So my stock went up like that with the pros. That's